Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito spoke to the Federalist Society about the coronavirus restrictions, social norms, and freedom of speech, and he really shouldn't have. And I am always amazed when someone opens their mouth and they feel like what's coming out of their mouth is brilliant, but what we hear is complete and utter absurdity. And this is what happened with Justice Alito as he made the case why he thinks coronavirus and the mask mandates are the biggest example of infringement on freedoms that he has ever seen. Let's take a look and listen in.
The pandemic has resulted in previously unimaginable restrictions on individual liberty. Now, notice what I am not saying or even implying. I am not diminishing the severity of the virus's threat to public health, and putting aside what I will say shortly about a few Supreme Court cases, I'm not saying anything about the legality of COVID restrictions. Nor am I saying anything about whether any of these restrictions represent good public policy. I'm a judge, not a policymaker. All that I'm saying is this, and I think it is an indisputable statement of fact. We have never before seen restrictions as severe, extensive, and prolonged as those experienced for most of 2020.
Now, I'm sorry, I'm laughing because African Americans who suffered slavery would like to have a word with you. The people who suffered through Jim Crow, the internment of Japanese people during World War II would like to have a word with you. Of course, the indigenous people in this country would like to have a word with you. There's a long list of people who have experienced far more egregious infringements on their liberties in this country than being asked to wear a mask. And the irony, the sick, twisted irony, Anna, is that the people who suffer the most because we will not put a mask mandate out there are those same marginalized groups that I just listed who already suffered in this country. But for Samuel Alito, this is the most terrifying thing that he's ever had to face. And maybe that's right for a wealthy, privileged, conservative white man. The worst thing that you've ever encountered in this country is having to put on a mask.
Ben, there's literally nothing I can add to that. That was everything. That was everything. And the only thing that I would ask is why did he feel the need to put this video out at a time when coronavirus cases are rapidly increasing, record numbers each day, hundreds of thousands of new infections every single day, nearly 250,000 people dead. But hey, he's not saying that the pandemic isn't serious. He's just saying that wearing a mask is an awful violation of your rights. And so that's all he said. What? Anyway,
there's more. Yeah, he didn't stop there. It actually managed to get worse. So let's take a listen to the next clip.
Think of all the live events that would otherwise be protected by the right to freedom of speech. Live speeches, conferences, lectures, meetings. Think of worship services. Churches closed on Easter Sunday. Synagogues closed for Passover and Yom Kippur. Think about access to the courts or the constitutional right to a speedy trial. Trials in federal courts have virtually disappeared in many places. Who could have imagined that? The COVID crisis has served as a sort of constitutional stress test.
I just can't help but look at the perspective difference. Like he really looks at the justice system as something people are missing. I'm sure there are plenty of marginalized communities who are more than happy to know that the courts can't hear their case right now because we don't have equal access to justice, right? So this whole perspective of the greatest example of suffering that this conservative man has ever had to endure, what he constitutes to be a constitutional crisis, is not any other type of oppression that we are in the streets about, right? It's not the murder of black men at the hands of police officers. It's not the constant assault on women's rights to their body and the right to choose, or marriage equality, or just the right to be able to love somebody. It's not being able to go to a football game.
It's terrifying when you consider how his ideology is widely represented within our Supreme Court, thanks to the fact that Donald Trump successfully appointed 3 Supreme Court justices.
Right.
So, man, it really is devastating. And I mean, I think everyone knows at this point that the argument that the Supreme Court is non-political is just ridiculous.
Yes.
It absolutely is political. He's kind of trying to like finesse his way into making a political statement with like plausible deniability about making a political statement. He's making a political statement here. There's no question about it. This is very political and incredibly irresponsible. Again, at a time when more and more people are contracting this virus.
Right. Well, you think about like that's the whole nature of originalism, right? If you're an originalist, you have this lens of the Constitution being like this divine document that doesn't need to be amended. That's because it was divine for you as a white, wealthy, aristocratic, land-owning white man. You know, the Constitution worked perfectly fine for you, but now we're facing this time where the first time they've ever been inconvenienced, all we need them to do is put on a mask. It actually got worse. There's another clip. Let's listen to that one.
First, what we see in this statute and in what was done under it is a particularly developed example of where the law in general has been going for some time, in the direction of government by executive officials who were thought to implement policies based on expertise, and in the purest form, scientific expertise.
Now, to me, and maybe I'm overreacting, but what I hear here is that he feels like they have a constitutional right to fight on behalf of leading us, not based on science or expertise. So if this is what you're lamenting, that we're moving in a direction where who leads us are people who specialize in a thing, and you think that that's not good, this is the example of him saying something he thinks was smart, but to me it sounds absolutely absurd.
Everything he said so far sounds absolutely absurd. Again, I don't understand the need to put a video like this out there. Like, I'm actually curious to learn more about where this video came from, who organized the video, is he getting paid for it in some way? Because I just think the whole thing is incredibly strange and insanely irresponsible right now. We've seen how his ideology, specifically his right-wing ideology, has impacted this country's handling of a virus. Something that is airborne, something that is spread very easily. This is not an individual issue.
Right.
This is something that needs a collectivist approach and response. This is something that needs to very seriously look at the data, look at the science, and apply evidence-based actions to combat the virus. But we haven't done that. And what he's doing is he's basically egging on.
Yes.
I mean, think about it. He's a Supreme Court justice. He's egging on the disgusting behavior that we've seen by right-wing governors, by right-wing voters, right-wingers throughout the country. And that's why I'm at a point, I mean, I've said this on the show before, Ben, where I just don't care anymore, right? And when I say that, I know what the truth is. I know what I need to do to keep myself and my family safe. And so I'm gonna listen to the data, I'm gonna listen to the evidence. And if people want to be irresponsible, and if they want to needlessly, as they have been, drag this virus, this pandemic, longer than it needs to go, then fine. It's just so unfortunate for people who have been trying to do the right thing. Small business owners who did lose their businesses because all these morons throughout the country can't do something as simple as wear a mask.
Wearing a mask. And one last thing before I throw it back to you, Anna, it is the fact that Alito really represents the apex of conservative thought, right? He's a Supreme Court justice, a conservative Supreme Court justice. And so what he's forwarding to us is like the crown jewel of conservative thought. And if you listen to what is the most brilliant thought from conservatives, it is the thought that will destroy us, that we don't have to have any responsibility to anyone else. At a time, like you said, it is a time of collective action. It is necessary for us to sacrifice for the common good. But the ideology at the core of conservatism that wants to lead is the exact ideology that would destroy us.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.